This is September 17th. It's a Wednesday morning. It's about 10:45 a.m. We just arrived at the Gatwick Airport. It is 10:45 here, 4:45 a.m. in Minneapolis. We're now waiting for a coach to take us to the Gatwick Europa Hotel. And there's our passenger waiting for us. Wide and awake. She hasn't slept for 24 hours. No problem. Beautiful day. It's sunny out this morning. This is the Europa Hotel. The backyard, courtyard, gorgeous. This is a goldfish pond. And this is the lobby of the hotel. We're waiting for the coach to take us into the South Station to get into London to see Rachel. And this is the hotel from the front entrance. It's the Gatwick Express. We just took the train from Gatwick to Victoria Station. How you doing up there? We're on a bus tour now of London. We have 2.5 hours before we meet Rachel and Mark.
The buildings across on our left-hand side once more are the stables and coach houses of the Royal Mews. Gallery. Originally built as a garden conservatory, it was converted to a chapel in 1893 before becoming an art gallery in 1962. It now houses part of the Queen's art collection, and the displays here are changed frequently. The front entrance to the palace, and the Queen now lives in a corner of the palace on the first floor, and many other members of her family have offices or rooms here also. It also boasts a cinema and a swimming pool. On the right, underground rail systems in the capital. This building itself is world-renowned, having been built in 1929 in a cruciform, and is particularly famous for the sculptures of Day and Night by Jacob Epstein. The building was started in 1050 AD by the Saxon king Edward the Confessor. He died a week after its consecration in January 1066 and became the first monarch to be buried here. On Christmas Day of the same year, William the Conqueror was the first king to be crowned here, and Westminster Abbey's importance was secured. Every English sovereign subsequently has been crowned here, with the exception of Edward V and Edward VIII. And you too can enter Westminster Abbey and experience for yourself this magnificent church. The last coronation was for Queen Elizabeth II. It was relatively trouble-free. Not so for William I, who when he heard the cheering outside thought there was a rebellion. For Richard I, who had a bat swooping around his head, Richard II, who lost a shoe, George IV, who nearly passed out from the heat, and Edward VII, who nearly gained his crown back to... were originally part of the Abbey and date back to the 11th century. Famous pupils here included Ben Jonson, Christopher Wren and Andrew Lloyd Webber. By going across Lambeth Bridge. This part of the Thames is still a tidal river and it rises and falls by up to 20 feet twice a day. It used to carry ships laden with foreign produce, but now containerized freight traffic unloads its cargo much nearer the coast. This has left London's river chiefly for recreation. And we can see the Houses of Parliament with the twin debating chambers of the House of Commons and the House of Lords at the Palace of Westminster. Here the great affairs of state are debated and decided upon, and this particular building was designed by Sir Charles Barry with detailed drawings by Augustus Pugin. It was opened in 1852 and covers an area of 8 acres. There are 11 courtyards, 100 staircases and over 1,000 rooms, all connected by 2 miles of passageways. Indeed, the riverside facade, which we can see, is 940 feet long. So we can see on the other side of the roundabout the red brick building there, which is Lambeth Palace, the official residence of the Archbishop of Canterbury, and has been so now since the end of the 12th century. Next to Lambeth Palace, the church we can see is St Mary's, now the home to the Museum of Garden History, a living collection of plants in honour to Charles I's royal gardeners, who incidentally are buried there, as is Captain Bligh, who survived the mutiny on the Bounty to become an equally unpopular governor of New South Wales, before being buried here at St Mary at Lambeth. Our tour bus stops here. A light here for Lambeth Palace, the Imperial War Museum, and a fine view of the Houses of Parliament. Welcome aboard London Pride's Grand Tour of London as we make our way now away from Lambeth Bridge. It's interesting to note that the road we're now travelling along was in fact reclaimed in the last century. Formerly Lambeth Palace and the gardens to our right stood on the bank of the river in 1986. County Hall has been redeveloped, now gaining apartments, a leisure centre and a hotel. We're now approaching London Pride stop number 9. If you'd like to alight here, Big Ben. In fact, it's really the Clock Tower or St Stephen's Tower. Big Ben is the name of the bell. There are various stories as to why it is called Big Ben, but the 2 most likely concern Sir Benjamin Hall, the unpopular Chief Commissioner of Works, and Big Benjamin Count Dusters. Charles Barry, one of the designers of the Houses of Parliament, wanted the world's largest clock, 316 feet high above London. Exceptional accuracy was demanded, but on completion of the clock it was then delivered up, and that in turn cracked the bell. Eventually a new bell was then cast here in London, and that's the one we have here today. Looking ahead, we can see Parliament Square, London's first one-way traffic system. In the centre, we can see several statues of famous statesmen, including one of Winston Churchill, which interestingly has an electrical current running through it to stop London's pigeons landing on him. Directly ahead of us, there's a small church on the corner of the square, which is St Margaret's of Westminster, dating from 1523. Married in St Margaret's were Milton, Pepys and Winston Churchill, for this is the parish church of the House of Commons. Immediately in front of us, in the centre of the road, is the cenotaph. The cenotaph is a memorial to those who have died for this country, and every November a remembrance service is held here. Her Majesty the Queen, leading statesmen and members of the public, thousands of ex-servicemen and women, come here to the team. days when it's at 10 o'clock. But after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the horses are put to bed and the guard remains here on foot. 184 feet high above London. Nelson went to sea when he was 12 and was an admiral by the time he was 13. Nelson's home is situated in Trafalgar Square, named after the famous Battle of 1805, as a monument to the men and officers who lost their lives there. Admiral Lord Nelson died of his wounds shortly after being told that victory was secured. The whole statue cost £50,000. Building work started in 1840, but it was 1863 before the lions arrived. One little known and curious fact is that when the column was completed and shortly before the statue was due to be added, the stonemasons gathered here to have dinner, seated on the plinth 180 feet above London. Looking directly ahead, we can see a cream-coloured building with pillars outside, which is Canada House. This is the home of the High Commission for Canada. Whilst once again on our right-hand side, we can see the Church of St Martin's in the Fields. Completed in 1724, it became the blueprint for countless other churches, including many in America. The painter, Hogarth, is buried here, as is the famous cabinet maker, Chippendale.
This whole thing is Trafalgar Square, isn't it?
For the whole of the trip, you'll do both. This bus is first going east towards St Paul's Cathedral and the Tower. If later on in the tour you are light here, please make sure you get on a bus going west towards Buckingham Palace and Westminster. This way you'll complete your grand tour of London with your ticket, which is valid for 24 hours from the time stamped on it. You can use it on any of the red and silver London Prime. Looking directly ahead of us, coming into full view shortly on our right, is one of London's busiest stations. Opened in 1864, Charing Cross brings well over 100,000 commuters into the city every day. On the forecourt of the station is a 19th century replica of Eleanor's Cross. The original cross was built in 1293 as a memorial to Edward I's late wife, Eleanor of Castile. A series of 13 crosses like this one marked the route of her funeral to Westminster Abbey, with Charing Cross being the last stop. The word Charing comes from an old Anglo-Saxon word meaning a bend in the river, and the road we're now travelling along marks what used to be the bank of the River Thames. This is the Strand, the Old English word for beach. One of the most famous being that of Stanley Gibbons, the famous stamp collector's shop, which has been here since 1874, and we shall see on our left-hand side. This is London Pride stop number 14 here in the Strand. A right here for Covent Garden and the Strand. Built on the site of the old Savoy Palace, which was largely destroyed during the Peasants' Revolt of 1381, it stands at the end of the only road in London where traffic drives on the right rather than the left. This rather strange arrangement was originally devised to allow taxi drivers to open their passengers' doors without leaving their own seat. St Mary le Strand. Charles Dickens' parents were married here in 1809. St Mary le Strand used to stand on the north side of the street, but road widening forced by the motor car in 1910 left it isolated in the middle of the road. BBC World Service. If you're visiting from overseas and at home you can tune in to hear this is the BBC calling the world from London, then this is the bit of London that they're calling from. The Aldwych also houses both Australia and India House. Civil court in the land. There are 23 separate courts. Although it only deals with civil cases, there are cells in the basement for the use of the Central Criminal Court, that's the Old Bailey, which is just a short distance from here. Monument surmounted by a bronze dragon, the symbol of the City of London. This then marks our entry into the City of London itself. The city, which is the 1 square mile that's the oldest part of the capital, the focal point for trade, banking and business. It has its own local government, its own police force and even its own Lord Mayor. once the home of the daily and Sunday newspapers of Great Britain, but now new technology has forced the move into outer London areas. The tradition of printing here goes back to the printing of the first ink dictionary here by Dr. Johnson in the mid-1700s and who lived nearby. See the 365-foot high dome of St. Paul's Cathedral. We shall be stopping outside this magnificent church, which took 35 years to build, and was for a large part of that time surrounded by a high-security fence to stop people seeing the progress, as there was at the time great resistance to the dome when many traditionalists wanted to spire. St. Paul's Cathedral cost £850,000 to build, and it was paid for by a tax on coal arriving by sea in London. Its designer, Sir Christopher Wren, was 78 by the time the last stone was laid in 1708. The year 604, and this is the fifth building to take the St. Paul's name. The previous church was much larger than the present cathedral and was destroyed by the Great Fire of London in 1666. This brought an end to the rowdy behaviour inside St. Paul's, which in the years before its destruction had led the bishop to ban all games, beer selling, shooting, gambling and even wrestling. Paul's Cathedral. This area retained their old names from the days when they described what was on sale. On the right is Garlic Hill, where herbs and spices could be bought, and you'll also find nearby a Milk Street, a Honey Lane, a Pudding Lane, a Petticoat Lane, a Corn Hill, and even a Pickled Herring Alley. The bank, taking its name from the Bank of England. Straight ahead we can see a building with columns outside, that's the Royal Exchange, and in front we can see a statue of the Duke of Wellington on his favourite horse, Copenhagen. On our right we'll be able to see the Mansion House, the official residence of the Lord Mayor of London, built in 1739. It's only possible to visit the Mansion House by writing in for an appointment for a free guided tour. Level we can see the Bank of England. The bank was granted its charter in 1694 during the reign of William III, whose statue can be seen on the wall in Threadneedle Street. The idea was to promote public good, whilst in reality it financed the ongoing war with France. The public invested the money and the bank lent it to the government. In 1928 it became the only issuer of banknotes in England and Wales. Scotland prints its own, and about 5 million such English banknotes are destroyed and replaced each day. While security for the bank is, needless to say, very high, it is possible to visit the Bank of England Museum. It's open on Mondays to Fridays and free to get in. Above the tops of the buildings we might catch a glimpse of the top of the monument to the Great Fire of London, which broke out in a baker's shop near to it in 1666. The fire continued for over 4 days and destroyed 89 churches, 460 streets and over 13,000 houses. The monument stands 202 feet high, and you'll have some magnificent views of London from the top. It's possible to climb the 311 steps, so if you're feeling fit, you'll need to get off at our next stop. London Bridge itself, and we'll be able to see on our left perhaps the most famous bridge of them all, Tower Bridge. It's the last bridge across the Thames in London, and it's been carrying traffic for over 100 years. Tower Bridge is the one that opens in the middle. Also from here you'll have a wonderful view of HMS Belfast. She's the last surviving cruiser intact from World War II and played an active role in the D-Day landings of 1944. It is possible to go on board now as she's become a floating museum. To visit her you'll need to get off at stop number 19. Tooley Street, a famous old shipping street here in London, but home now to one of London's most popular attractions, the London Dungeon. The London Dungeon is dedicated to torture, punishment and all things horrible, and it's on your right. You may purchase your tickets for the London Dungeon from your driver. You'll also need to alight here for Hayes Galleria, which is full of shops and restaurants, and also the Britain at War Experience, an exhibition dedicated to the achievements of Londoners facing the Blitz. America. You might be interested to know that John Harvard was born nearby and went on to own a pub here, the Queen Inn. Later, he sold up and moved to the USA to found the famous Harvard University.
Air raid shelter.
All of that. It's all about the sex.
Onto Tower Bridge itself. Tower Bridge was opened in 1894 and powered by hydraulics. Now completely electric, the whole centre sections, pavement and roadway open to allow tall ships to pass through. They weigh about 1,000 tons each. It cost over £1 million to build and was designed by John Wolfe Barry. It was painted peacock blue to gain favour with the monarch of the time, Queen Victoria. That was her favourite colour, and as you can see, it maintains this colour today. Docklands area of Canary Wharf and Greenwich. To visit these places you'll need to get off at our next stop, which is the Tower of London. From here, and even a zoo. It's the oldest continuously occupied fortress in Europe. In the centre we can see the White Tower, which is the oldest part of the Tower of London, dating from 1078, where it dominated the surrounding area. Later kings added to the tower, principally Henry III and Edward I. Regularly executed here at the tower. Executed here were Henry VI, Edward V, Anne Boleyn and Catherine Howard. There was a moat around the tower, but it was drained in 1843 to protect the structure. The Tower of London is guarded by 41 yeoman warders, more commonly known as the Beefeaters. In addition, 6 ravens are kept here, and folklore has it that the tower will fall if the ravens leave. So as a precaution, their wings up. The Tower of London will want to see the crown jewels, which are always kept here amidst great security. They only come out for cleaning, but the imperial state crown is worn by the Queen for the state opening of Parliament. The crown jewels are now in a brand new home in the Tower of London, which is safer, brighter and easier for you to see. Roman city of Londinium, and indeed under London Bridge. Of course there's a lot to find in the ground from old Roman times, and when these modern buildings, which you can see on both sides of the road, were being excavated, it was possible to come across some real treasures from Roman times. It is now possible for developers to leave excavations for about 12 months whilst the archaeologists dig around and see what they can find. Many of the things which are found throughout London and indeed in the River Thames find their way to the very interesting Museum of London in 1814, but this one was opened in 1921 by King George V and Queen Mary. We've got some superb views of London, but if we look across to our right on the river frontage ahead, we can see Shakespeare's Globe Theatre. The Globe has been beautifully restored using traditional materials and methods. Many of the greatest plays in the English language were first performed at the Shakespeare Globe after it was built in 1599. Badge. This takes its name from Thomas Doggett, the actor and manager of the famous Drury Lane Theatre, who in 1715 inaugurated a boat race on the River Thames to celebrate the accession of King George I. The race still takes place every summer during July on the River Thames, and the winners get a celebratory dinner at the Fishmongers' Hall in the City of London. Many of them are now used as floating restaurants, pubs, and 1 or 2 by charities or as training ships. Across on the left-hand side, on the far side of the riverbank, we can see the National Theatre.
So you meet yourself a square, my God, you would really
It's Trafalgar Square from the other side. Look at that guy holding pigeons. See him? I thought I saw Zadie there. See him?
Being London Pride's main interchange stop, is also the closest for Leicester Square, Planet Hollywood and London's Fashion Cafe, where you can sit and enjoy a meal while surrounded by memorabilia from the fashion industry. To our right is Lily White's, a large sports goods and clothing retailer occupying part of what is known as the Criterion Building, named after the hotel, theatre and restaurant which once occupied this site. Now only the theatre and the restaurant, which was reopened in 1992, remain. Ladies and gentlemen, we're making our way into Coventry Street, stop number 1 on your maps. You'll need to alight here for Leicester Square, the Fashion Cafe, the Trocadero and Sega World, also London's Planet Hollywood. If you want to use your ticket to explore other parts of London, many of our services connect at this stop. Please ask either your driver or the staff on duty here. Bus has to finish its journey here. If you would like to continue on your London Pride tour, please collect together all of your belongings and leave the bus at this stop. The driver or staff on duty will make sure you get on the right bus to continue your grand tour. Hello ladies and gentlemen and welcome aboard. This is London Pride's Grand Tour of London. Thanks very much for joining us today on London's best panoramic bus tour. You're free to get off the bus and take a look at any of the attractions which we shall see by getting off at any of our special stops. With the columns outside is the Theatre Royal Haymarket, whilst on our right we can see Her Majesty's Theatre. Her Majesty's Theatre is the only one which we have here in London which changes its name depending on whether we have a king or a queen on the throne.
so clean.
And so we turn away from St James's Palace and into St James's Street. And if we look to our right-hand side, we can see the old shop.
It's a Hard Rock
We're now
Cafe.
approaching Hyde Park Corner, and across the street on the far side of the island, we can see a brownstone building with pillars outside. This is Apsley House, built in Septime, has become the official residence of the royal family. And now, although part of the palace is open to the public in summer months, the Queen's Gallery is open to the public regularly. And to visit there, you will need to get off at our next stop, which is Victoria.
Rachel, I got you on the camera, Rachel.
Hello.
Hello. Can you say something to Rachel? In American, not in English.
You're going to say something.
Not in English.
I can't understand you. Mark, it's nice to meet you, Mark. How you feel?
It's nice to meet you as well. I've got to be formal. I've got to be formal and British.
Formal.
So
Be
you think
formal.
I'm proper.
You haven't introduced you to my family this way.
Oh no, I'll have to edit it.
Okay.
I'll edit it.
It's nice to be here with you.
It's nice to be here.
Where are we at? Where are we? What's this restaurant?
Victoria Station.
Cafe Room.
This
Some of the best food you're going to get in
This is the Gatwick North Terminal.
Passengers Gibbons and Gaunt, the last passengers on this service. Please make your way immediately to
Waiting for Shane and Patty.
Flight has boarded. Thank you.
Sarah's over there someplace. Waiting to depart for Naples. There's Sarah waiting for everybody.
Estaba.
5 minutes to go. What's the hurry?
This is the light. You've got to come here. It is magnificent.
This is the view from the Riviera Hotel in Amalfi. We just arrived.